I'm Herm Gailey, here to introduce our Prestart series and also to respond to some comments and answer some questions that came up in the course of previous videos. We recently put a video up about the age at which I prefer to start a young horse under saddle, basically late in the 2-year-old year. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a whole lot you can do their weanling year, their yearling year, and early in their 2-year-old year, assuming that you own the horse. That's one of the advantages to getting these horses very young. You can make this a gradual continuum to where the horse grows up and learns all at the same time. And when you get on their back, hopefully, you feel like somebody's been riding them for about 30 days and things go pretty smoothly. This is not intended, though, to apply only to horses of these ages. So if you've got a 5-year-old and any of the things we're going to talk about are not firmly in place, go right back, and it's never too late. Just pretend your 5-year-old is in his 4th yearling year, and it'll all be good, and you'll fill in some gaps that maybe existed from before, because there are an awful lot of horses out there that don't have that early foundation. Doesn't mean you can't still shore things up and make them solid. So we're going to go through a sort of a checklist of various things that I think your weanling, your yearling, your early 2-year-old should know that will contribute to him being a better horse to be around, period, whether you ever get on his back or not. And maybe more importantly to me, will also pave the way and begin the process of having him ready to ride successfully when you do get on his back, be it late 2-year-old year. I've started a lot of horses in their 3-year-old year or even later. If you fill all those things in the beginning, it's all going to go better. So let's talk about some of the things that we are going to go through, and we're going to be putting up videos on each of these things, and we may sometimes combine a couple into one longer video. You'll also find that many of these things have been touched on in previous videos. Frankly, our channel has grown sort of organically without a lot of thought out pre-organization. So things are scattered around. If you go and look for these things, you'll probably find most of them. But this is going to take a specific set of young horses through this process. So what kind of things are we talking about? Well, first of all, you want your young horse to lead. Lead as opposed to drag. Lead as opposed to lead you. The horse should be polite, should maintain a pace, should be maneuverable on the ground. When you go through a gate, the horse shouldn't rush. You should be able to shift the horse off to the side and yield his back end away from you so that you can safely turn him loose in a pasture after you go through that gate. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be looking at. Leading, tying. I tie my horses early, but I have a process I put them through that makes it non-stressful and just part of their working equipment. Picking up feet. These horses are only about 8 months old at this point. They have not been trimmed, and they should be. And frankly, I wish I'd got them done before, but sometimes it's hard to be completely up to date where you'd like to be. That's going to be one of the early items on the agenda, to get them perfectly good with their feet so the blacksmith can work on them. He's safe, they're comfortable, and everything goes smoothly. Basic groundwork exercises, yields, and so forth, really useful both for working around your horse now on the ground and later on when you get on his back. I like to pony my horses, get them used to being around another horse, get them a little more feel off the halter, teaches them to go outside and do things. I'll take them for a trail ride when I'm ponying them. Absolutely want to teach your horse to load at an early age. I always wonder what would happen if your horse just didn't load or didn't know how to load, and you had to train him to load because he had to go to the vet clinic for an emergency. You don't want to be teaching an injured or sick horse to load. You want to have that horse ready to step on and take that trip if it's necessary. I like these horses to back up. If they don't back up, you can't get them out of your space, and it's not easy to put them where you want them. When the weather warms up, hosing and washing is part of the picture, as is clipping. Some people feel that clipping's not necessary. I'm fine with that. But if you found yourself in a place you needed to clip your horse, maybe even for a veterinary procedure, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have him accepting of that. So those are the things we're going to be putting up. We're going to try to do it in a rational sequence, and we'll be letting you know they'll be coming up very shortly. Now, comments. When we put up the video on what age to start your colt, I invited comments, and I got some. I got some very good ones, and I find that I learn a whole lot from the comments. And I absolutely hope that you folks will look at the comments and come up with these videos and consider what people have to say. Now, I will say that the first comment that came up didn't exactly cause me to have optimism. It started out with, "I am sick of seeing grown-ass men riding late yearlings and 2-year-old colts," followed by an extended rant that boils down to, "Don't do much until they're 4." That apparently is what this particular person does. That's fine. It's another point of view. I do find that my horses begin more demanding work at 4, and it's nice to have some riding under their belt before they get to that age. The comments kind of changed in tone after that, and certainly that was welcome. One person pointed out what I was trying to say in a lot of words in a very few, saying there is a difference between riding a horse and preparing them to be ridden. Bingo. That says it. I probably didn't need to make that long video. You need to prepare your horse to be ridden before you ride him, and you can get so much done. Another reference to high attrition rate among early started horses in racing. That's sad but true. Another person said, and this is a good point, sure, start your 2-year-old, but don't pressure him to do performance aimed at a 3-year-old performance futurity, or you're going to have problems. I agree. I'm not a 3-year-old futurity fan. I've never shown a 3-year-old. I know it's a huge part of the horse game. It's not a game I care to play personally. Another person made reference to something I should have mentioned, and that is the weight ratio. If you've got a small 2-year-old and you're a larger person, that's more challenging for that horse. It's more physically stressful. I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6'5", 215. I follow a gal who starts a lot of colts. She's 5'3" and weighs 115. Big difference there. One reason why I don't start my horses any younger than I do, and why I do so little with them as 2-year-olds, is because of my size. It's not my fault, it's not the horse's fault, but I need to recognize that. And I think you should too. That's a good point that this commenter made. One person said, if you're going to wait till your horse is 4 years old, as some people suggest, make sure your groundwork is really bulletproof, because you're going to need it. Excellent point. Someone else said, some 4-year-olds seem to reach a point where they get confident and begin to push back and resist more than they even did when they were baby 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds. You know, I've observed that. That's true. And the comment was, if you start them at 4, you may be walking into the equine equivalent of the terrible 2s in kids. Makes the process harder. You'll get through that difficult stage much more easily if your horse has been started younger. I think that's a good angle. One person said that they start their colts at 20 months old, described their process, which was pretty low key, said they've had good results. God bless. If it works for you, do it. You're paying the feed bills. I'm not. However, it wouldn't work for me. That's all I can say. Maybe because I'm a big old guy. Maybe because when I get on to ride, I have to restrain myself from doing too much. I'd rather have them a little older in case I go over the edge. A couple of comments from earlier episodes came up as well. One person said, and I was describing a horse and bucked a little bit, I said, I took a deep seat. And the question was, what do you mean by a deep seat? This person said she had had not much luck with horses that bucked and wondered what you could do to stay on board. Well, of course, the best thing is try to avoid having your horse buck. But if your horse bucks, and not just the crow hop, but breaks into and tries to buck you off, you do need to take a deeper seat. And what I do, and I don't claim to be a bronc rider and never had any aspirations, but sometimes by default you have to go through some of that. I don't sit up perfectly erect. I don't lean back. I darn sure don't lean forward. Lean back, you get left behind. Lean forward, you become a downward going lawn dart. Sit up too straight and you're too stiff. So I just sort of curl my back, roll my seat underneath me a little bit, and just stay loose. I don't make myself tight. Easier said than done, but if you've been down that road a time or two, it'll come. Every time a horse jumps, you don't just cling on and you don't squeeze with your legs. You let the horse take his jump and look for a new hold. Take a jump, look for a new hold. If you try to lock on, the horse is going to move out from underneath you. So those are some thoughts as to how to ride a horse that bucks. And I will tell you that if I've got a spare hand, which I usually do, I'm going to grab something handy. A saddle horn, you can put a thing on called a night latch, which is a kind of a strap that you can hold on to. If I happen to have 3 hands, I would probably be holding on with all 3. I'm not trying to make a qualified ride at a rodeo. I'm trying to stay on top. You should too. Do what you need to stay there. Another question that I'm going to promise details to come was, I am a heavy person. Not me, but the person asking the question. The word they used was obese, and I don't ride. If I wanted to start riding, is there a certain weight ratio? Well, the rule of thumb that we hear a lot is 20% of the horse's body weight. So if you got a 1,000-pound horse, that horse can carry 200 pounds. That includes tack, clothing, and the rider. I don't subscribe to that as a knee-jerk absolute rule, but it is a good rule of thumb. I'm going to have something more on this downstream that includes some research I've come across and some research I'm going to do and some life experience in starting a lot of horses where I frankly exceeded the weight ratio of 20% of the horse's body weight. The horse was fine. They had long careers. I've been in a position to follow an awful lot of horses lifelong. And I think my soundness record, which is very good, frankly, stands up to say you can exceed that if you do it in a responsible way. So there'll be more on that to come because I think it's an interesting topic. I know it'll light a few people up, but something worth exploring. Till we get to that, thank you for your comments. Keep them coming, and we'll see you next time.